Hello and welcome to the Aid Station. I'm Chris Robb, and today we head up to Glasgow in Scotland and really excited to meet John Kynaston, who is the host of a wonderful podcast called Run to the Hills, which focuses on trail running, and we'll certainly hear more about that. Great to see you, John.
Thank you very much. I must say straight away that I'm not a native of Glasgow. You'll probably tell by the accent, or you may or may or not. I hail from Liverpool originally. That's where I was born and brought up. But we've lived in Paisley, just next to Glasgow, for the last 19 years.
Wonderful. And so well, that then obviously begs the question, are you the blue or the red side of Liverpool or neither?
I'm definitely the blue. Definitely the blue.
Definitely
Yeah.
the blue. Okay.
I love my Everton. Yeah.
I'm glad we didn't speak about that before we set it up because I'm in the red camp. I was
Oh no.
grew up in Zimbabwe and used to watch Liverpool on the black and white telly when I was a kid, and then obviously Bruce Krobler, the former goalkeeper. So we got a friendly rivalry there, but we won't
Yes.
let that get between us today. John,
That's right.
I'd love to, apart from that, I'd love
Mm.
to hear a little bit more about you, your background and your story.
Well, I trained as a PE teacher at Chester College and then taught for a little bit. I worked for a Christian organisation for 3 years with students. I met my wife, we got married, went to Bible college, then we went off to Bangladesh for 3 years. And then we
Wow.
had 5 years in India where we taught in a school. During that time, we had 4 girls, twins, and then 2 years later, another one, then another fourth girl 2 years later. So that was a busy time in our lives.
Yeah.
We came home in '95, and I worked for a Christian Mission Society and basically representing the mission in the Midlands of England. And then became an assistant pastor of a church. And then we moved up to Paisley, where I became a pastor for 7 years. And then about 10 years ago, I moved into working with Glasgow City Council as an active schools coordinator. So there's a quick summary of my life.
Wow, it sounds like an amazing life, and spending that wonderful time I haven't been to Bangladesh, but I've spent time in India, and both amazing countries.
I must also say we've got 7 grandchildren now with an eighth on the way. So that just completes our family background.
Wow, that must keep you very busy, and obviously on top of that, the amazing work that you do in the schools program, and now your Run to the Hills podcast as well. Tell us a little bit about what life's like now during the COVID period.
Yeah, at my job, I work as an active schools coordinator in Glasgow. So basically our role is to make more children more active more often. So we organise after school clubs, we organise lots of challenges, lots of events, just to get children in primary schools, particularly and secondary, more active. And we recognise as a government, unless we do something about the health of our primary children, we're going to store up problems down the line as they get adults. So it's a great programme. I really enjoy being involved. At the moment, it's quite different. Our role normally is a coordinating role. So we'll get coaches in, we'll get volunteers in, we'll organise events. All that's been obviously on hold at the moment. So it's a little bit more delivery. So at the moment, on a Monday, Tuesday, I'm in my secondary school and I'm taking groups out cycling for sort of 40 minutes at a time, which is great fun. Wednesday is more of an admin day. And then Thursday, today, I'll be going to one of my primary schools and doing sessions of orienteering outside for the day. So I've got 8 lessons today of sort of 40 minutes each, which I'll hopefully get the kids active and running around the playground and searching for clues using their maps. So it's good fun. And then I'm working 4 days a week now with active schools. And then I have 1 day a week to do the podcast. So tomorrow I'll be producing our 5th episode of Run to the Hills.
Wonderful. It sounds amazing on both levels. And when we spoke a couple of days ago, you were just come in from the cycling. What kind of age are the children, and you know the kind of response you see from them? I'm guessing that there's a mix of some of them that are a bit reluctant to go out there, and others that absolutely love it. And hopefully the reluctant ones are loving it by the end of it. But you know, what are some of the changes and impacts that you see through that, John?
Yeah, I would say on a Monday, Tuesday, I'm in my secondary school. So that means they're children from 12 up to 16, 17. And all the PE is outside at the moment. And obviously Scottish weather, sometimes it rains. So we're trying to encourage them to bring coats and equipment so they can go outside. And I was chatting to the head of PE the other day, and she was saying that she can see an improvement in their fitness because this first 4 weeks, they've just concentrated on things like doing fitness sessions, doing various games that involve them running around. So that's been quite a benefit in some ways, that they've increased a bit. The groups I take out, some of them have not really been on a bike much before. So it's been great just to give them a bit of confidence. I have them for 4 weeks, and you can see the improvement in their cycling. And I'd love to feel that some of them will get their bikes out of the sheds and will start cycling a bit more. And that's what obviously Active Schools is about, trying to encourage children to find a sport and activity which they do outside of school, not just in school. And then the primary, I have a whole range. So today I'll have a P3 class, which is 7-year-olds, right up to P7, which is 11, 12-year-olds. And they're great fun. And they're happy to be outside in all weathers. I must admit, it's sometimes the parents aren't quite so keen, but the kids love it, being outside.
Wonderful. And you know, that obviously that you speak about them getting more fit and learning to ride their bikes, but I'm sure there's a huge amount of impact in terms of productivity, in terms of self-confidence, in terms of well-being. I mean, particularly the stresses that, you know, who knows what some of these poor young kids must be going through in their minds during COVID time, and for them getting out and getting active and having fun together. I mean, are you seeing any, you know, kind of real stories and examples of that you might be able to share, of a particular kid that, you know, got you saw this blossoming of self-confidence and self-esteem as a result of what they're doing?
Yeah, definitely. I was talking to a teacher last week when I was in the primary school, and she was saying she's got one boy in her class who she knows has probably spent 10, 12 hours a day on his computer during lockdown. And he probably hasn't been outside at all. And so one of the things that she's been trying to do, besides the lessons I do, she goes out with them and does a daily mile every day. And so they'll run around the pitch. And she said the first week when that boy came back, he couldn't even walk one of the laps, never mind run a mile. But as the weeks have gone on, the days have gone on, she can see the improvement. And I think that will be replicated throughout the city, throughout the country. You know, I think sadly there were some families that the kids just never got out at all. There's other great examples of families doing lots of activities with their kids, obviously. But the ones that we're concerned about is the ones that probably haven't been out and done much exercise at all. And so to get them back in school and to get them moving again is obviously going to be a real benefit.
Yeah, wonderful to see. I'm always interested on these interviews to hear some of the challenges during the last few months. Obviously, lockdowns coming and going and so on. But what are some of the challenges that you've faced? Both in your job and maybe personally. I know your daughters are mostly grown up now and all around the world with the grandchildren, and one of them in my backyard here in Bali. But any challenges in terms of being locked up at home and other things that were hard to deal with, or things that you learnt about yourself during the period of time?
Yeah, I think personally we felt quite fortunate, really. Both my wife and myself have got salary positions, so financially things were okay. We live on the edge of quite a nice area to run, and so from where I live I can go out the door and within a mile I'm up on what's called the Glen of Braes, and I can do a 20-mile loop quite comfortably up there. So personally I was able to keep running and keep involved in things. I think work-wise, I think that the real challenge has been just sort of doing what we normally do, and that's been quite hard. So when lockdown started, we were obviously working from home, and we tried to do some things that the children could do. So we did a lockdown Olympics, and I really love making little videos. So we had 9 events, and we made a little 5-minute video of how to do it and examples of what to do. And we had quite a few thousand children taking part in that over the summer, and just trying to get them again more active. So I think the challenge is we're just trying to do things a bit differently now. And how long this is going to last, we don't know. So we're just trying to think of different things. We have a big event called the Great Scottish Run, which is a half marathon and a 10K. And we have a schools run normally on the Friday before the weekend, which would have been on the 2nd of October. And so that would have been, we have about 3,000 children coming in different groups. and they do a 2K run, and then they have half an hour of come and try different sports. And it's a big flagship program of ours. And obviously that's been cancelled. But what we've just launched actually is a virtual Great Scottish Run. So we're encouraging classes as a class to run the West Highland Way virtually, which is 96 miles. So we've just signed up. We've got 466 classes from 88 schools that have signed up, which we reckon is over 8,500 pupils. And each of them hopefully will run at least 3 miles, because if you've got a class of 25, then you each need to run around about 3 or 4 miles each to complete the 96 miles. And in fact, one of your guests, Benji Bosanti, who was one of my colleagues here, Benji is providing all the website for us. So the schools will have a virtual map. So they'll be able to see where they are on that virtual map as they make their way from Mulgai to Fort William. So that's been something which has been really encouraging, how many classes have signed up, and those teachers are going to have an incentive to encourage their class to run over these. It'll start on the 21st of September, and they've got 2 weeks to complete it.
What a wonderful story. I was on a call with Benji incidentally this morning, and he was sharing that. And, you know, again, it's wonderful how the industry's changed, how we're getting more people coming into it. Those that, are missing out, are finding ways to do it. You were even sharing that, you were interviewing last night. Tell us about, I think you said the 4 different 100-mile races that you were interviewing the winners on the podcast. And the challenge is that, these people are running these races in a really condensed period of time, and, everyone's desperate to get out there and do the activities, but it presents challenges. Talk to us a little bit about your show and what you do on the show and who you've been interviewing.
Yeah, over the last 8 years, I've done a podcast for the West Highland Way, and I've really enjoyed doing that. And then during lockdown, I started doing some live interviews with key ultra runners and race directors to keep the community together. And I started thinking, I wonder if I could do this more regularly as a weekly show that would highlight a race that's just happened. And so I was thinking of doing this myself. And then there's a guy called Tim Taylor from Chia Charge. They make flapjacks using chia seeds. And Tim asked me, would I take over the podcast that they'd started called Run to the Hills? So I started that with a co-host, Edwina Sutton, which this is our 5th episode tomorrow. And basically we look at a race that's just happened. So this episode that will go out tomorrow is about the Thames Path 100. And that's part of the Centurion races down south of England. And they have 4 races. And normally those 400-mile races are spread out over maybe 5 or 6 months. But because the ones in April and June were all cancelled, they put them all together in this period of time in the autumn. So basically there's 4 races within 13 weeks. And I think there was about 30 people who signed up to do all 4. And after 2 races, it's down to, I think it's about 17, because already, people have dropped out, because it's such a tough challenge to run 100 miles, 4 weeks later, another 100, 5 weeks later, another one, and then one more 4 weeks later. So I interviewed 2 guys who were doing the Grand Slam, and it was really interesting because the first race they did, they were within 2 hours of each other. One was 26 hours, one was about 24. And then the second race, one just gone, one was just over 19 hours, and the other one was 26 and a bit. And I asked them what they did in between. And one of them did very little. They recovered, they had a week off, they did minimal amount, and then went, a little taper, and then went into the race. The other one is on a streak of 8 years of running every single day. So he carried on running every day. And he did 280 miles between the 2 races. So Rob, let me ask you a question. Okay, which do you think was the faster in the second race? The one who spent time recovering, or the one who kept running every day?
I would probably, my gut would tell me the one who had a break, but you're probably going to tell me it was the one that kept running every day.
Yeah, it was amazing. It was really interesting to talk to them, because it was the guy who is on a run streak and he just carried on. And he said because he's used to running every day, he recovers really quickly. And so he actually had a 3.5 hour PB on that race that's just gone on. So it was, I love it. And so on the podcast, what I tried to do is get the winners. So we had the male and the female winner, and that was fascinating, chatting to them about their race and how it went. but also to get people down the field as well. So it's not just about the elite runners, the podcast.
Yeah.
And we try and sort of highlight different things. We get different people on. We also do some live interviews. I did my first one on Tuesday with a guy called Donny Campbell, a Scottish runner, and he's just completed all the Munros, all 282 in one go. Took him just under 32 days. He broke the record by 7 days. And not just going up and down all the Munros, but you've got to cycle and kayak between them. So he was a guest on Tuesday.
Wow,
so I'm really enjoying the podcast and the YouTube channel, and it's something which I'd love to see develop and grow. And it's great having some contact now with folks in New Zealand as well. We're going to try and cover some of their races in the coming year. So maybe it'll be global and not just the UK.
Wonderful. Sounds incredibly inspiring, which leads me into, the finale. I always love to finish with something inspiring. I'm sure you've seen and heard many inspiring stories. Is there one that particularly stands out that you'd like to share, please, John?
Well, I must admit that's the one that's most on my mind at the moment, having just interviewed Donny. And I think that does inspire me, because this was a challenge that is a record that has stood for 10 years, and it looked as though it was very difficult to beat. And Donny set himself a really high standard, and he had a tracker. So every day I was on there 3 or 4 times a day, seeing where he was and how he was doing. Yeah, there's one Munro, Ben Lomond, which is quite close to us, it's only an hour away. So he was there on the Saturday. So we went over, climbed up, and we were on the top as Donny came up, and I did a little interview with him for 5 minutes on the top of Ben Lomond. But just watching his story, and I think the thing that I've learned most about ultra running, I've been involved now for about 12, 13 years, is that your body can do more than your mind says it can.
Yeah.
And time and again, I've proved that myself, some of the races I've done, and watching other people. And, you think you've reached your limit. You think your body can't go another step. And then you have something to eat, you have a little rest, someone says something to you that might just inspire you, and you get going and you discover that you can do more. Yeah. And that's what I just love about endurance. And for me, ultra running is you just don't know where the limit is. Yeah. Because you think you get there. And like Donny, when I was interviewing him, he said that after about 17 days, he really started struggling, because he was 2.5 weeks in, but he was not even halfway. And there was this every big days, day after day. And he just found Groundhog Day, and he just thought, can I do this? What's the point of it? Does it really matter? But he did, and he got through. And the amazing thing was, the last 2 days, the last 48 hours, he didn't sleep. He went right through 2 nights to finish inside the 32 days. Wow. Yeah. So anyway, that was inspiring.
John, what great stories, and so many other things that we could have spoken about, but time's flown by. Wonderful to catch up with you. I wish you all your best with Run to the Hills, and let's stay in contact and see how we can maybe work together going down the track. It sounds like a wonderful journey that you've just embarked on.
Yep, and I'd love to have you on our show, so we'll arrange that as well.
That'd be wonderful. I'd love to. Thank you so much.
Yeah.